Please make Allison welcome.
Thanks, David.
It's live.
Hey, technology. Thanks for having me. I'm kind of regretting switching order now because that was a super hard act to follow. But I'll give it a crack. Thanks for coming out. This is my first OZeWAI, so I'm so excited to be here with you. My name is Allison Ravenhall. I'm on the Twitters, Raven Alley, A-L-L-Y. I was Allison before I was accessible. So my regular public service announcement whenever I get up and talk about accessibility is the general reminder to tweet accessibly. And in doing this, we're enabling people, particularly those using screen readers, to fully experience Twitter in all of its glory. Unfortunately, Twitter has made the ability to add descriptions to image an opt-in rather than a default. So if you haven't already, go find the settings and privacy, dive into accessibility, and in there you'll find a setting for compose image descriptions, which means in future when you're popping your photos online, you can add a description to those things that will be exposed to screen readers. And newsflash, in the last week or so, Twitter has also announced that they have added support for image descriptions to GIFs. So if you're all up in the GIF action, you can add descriptions on their web portal, and the ability to do the same in the apps is coming soon. So hooray, Twitter's finally doing a thing. So I'm actually here to talk about Android. I think as far as accessibility goes, Android is a little bit of a lost platform. They're vastly outnumbered in terms of particularly screen reader users. They're all, the vast majority are on the Apple platform, and with good reason. Apple has been doing it for a long time and doing it reasonably well. But I'm here to tell you that Android is actually doing some good things. And there is a vast array of accessibility features built into the Android platform by default. So there's a large list on the screen. I've categorized it by mobility, sight, hearing, and cognition. I don't intend to list them all, and I'm not going to describe them all. I only have 20 minutes. I know lunch is sitting out there, so I'm just going to keep it really, really targeted. This is really for the developers in the room. I'm also hoping that someone will tell the people in Jian's mobile workshop about this stuff. So, spread the word. And I'm online too. So the first thing I want to share with you today is the accessibility scanner. And the accessibility scanner is an app that's published by Google, and it enables developers and the builders of apps to go away and run a check on their own app, or someone else's if you like. It's similar on the web platforms to the plugins that you'll get in a web browser to do those sort of code-based checks for accessibility. Now, when you download the accessibility scanner, it's available on the Play Store. It is free. It's published by Google. It won't install as a separate app in your apps list. It will install as a service underneath the accessibility section of your settings app. So that's where you'll find it. And when you enable that service, it presents itself as a blue button with a white tick. So I have a screenshot on the screen at the moment, and it is of the Australia Post app, because you have to pick on someone. And the first time I delivered this talk, I was actually at the Australia Post building talking to Australia Post developers, and they really appreciated the free audit. So here we are. So Australia Post have kindly donated their app for my demonstration purposes today, and the little blue tick is the way that we trigger the accessibility scan. And once we trigger that scan, the scanner takes a screenshot, and it returns that screenshot with some outlines around some troublesome areas. And you can tap on those little troublesome items and it will give you a description of what's going on and what you might need to change. You can also tap, there's a list button at the top of the page, so you can get a summarized list of all of the issues that are occurring on this page, or you can choose to export that issues list out to an external destination like an email or a document. So a couple of the issue types that you might see reported by the accessibility scanner. The first one is color contrast. It wouldn't be an accessibility talk if we didn't mention colour at some point, so I'll just get this out of the way. The word delivered is a strong keyword in the Australia Post app, as you might expect. It's telling me that my parcel has been delivered, and they've presented the delivered word in a lime green on a white background. And unfortunately, the accessibility scanner, which is appearing at the bottom half of this screen, is telling me that that combination of green on white is being presented at a colour contrast ratio of 3.01 to 1. And this falls below the recommended WCAG colour contrast text guideline of 4.5 to 1. And I think it's important to note that the scanner is telling the developer or the designer what they need to do, what is the level that they need to achieve. It's not just about you've done wrong, it's you've done wrong and here's what you need to hit. It's also showing you the colours that it's used, the hex codes that it's used to calculate the colour contrast. So you can go away, make some tweaks to your colours, come back, and hopefully next time you run that scan, this particular issue doesn't come up. Another issue that the scanner will report upon is touch target size. Obviously, touch targets are a very important part of accessibility, making sure that our buttons and things are big enough for people to touch, particularly if there are issues with mobility. The element that the scanner has chosen to pick on in this particular case is a blue button in the middle of the screen which has the title "Add a Delivery Address." And for those that can see the screenshot, you might say, what's the problem with this button? It's pretty much the width of the screen. It's huge. It is definitely huge in the horizontal axis, but in the vertical axis, it's actually quite narrow. It's quite short. Its height is very small. The scanner is reporting this. It's saying, consider making this clickable item larger. The item's height is 40 dp. dp is the measurement unit used by Android native. And the recommendation is that you make the height of this touch target 48 dp or larger. 48 dp is the recommendation comes from Google Material Design. It is quite similar to the WCAG AAA touch target requirement of 44 by 44 px, but obviously it's better to talk to Android developers in their language and use the units that they're going to be using in their own code. So 48 dp is a good recommendation there. The final issue type that I want to cover off from the accessibility scanner today is not labeling your elements properly. Pretty huge issue. See it in every single audit we do at Intopia. There's always something that's not labeled. And the scanner is reporting we have a big red button. It's a giant circle with a white plus on the middle of it. As a sighted user, it's very in your face. In the context of the rest of the screen, I can reasonably make the assumption that I'm going to be able to add some tracking details to track a parcel in my Australia Post app. But the scanner is reporting this item may not have a label readable by screen readers, and this is a problem. So how do we understand better as developers why does no label matter? It's got a plus on it. What more do we need? So in order to check it, we hop back to the settings app and we turn off our scanner and we turn on TalkBack. TalkBack being Google's provided screen reader for Android devices. And I've made a little capture, I made a little video. Go Australia Post, they're going to be so proud. I captured this video a month or two ago. I'm hoping they've made some changes since then. I should go back and check. And this video, we're going to move through the screen from the bottom using TalkBack, and you're going to hear the screen reader experience of what that unlabeled button sounds like.
TalkBack on. QEV80749737. More. Double tap to activate. Account. Find us. Selected. Track. Unlabeled button. Double tap to activate. Unlabeled button. Double tap to activate.
I thought I had to do it twice for effect. Unlabeled button. Who's going to sit there and have a button that they can't see, say, "Hi, I'm unlabeled," and you're just going to go, "Yep, I trust you," and hit it? Seriously, it's so disappointing. This happens way too often, and with tools like these, we really don't have an excuse for having this sort of thing happen anymore. If you are an Android developer yourself, if you have friends who are Android developers, if you know the people in the other room, please tell them. There's one, very quick way to fix this. It's the content description property. So this is equivalent to an ARIA label, say, in the web world. And you put a string in this, like add tracking details, and voila, the button will say, "Add tracking details button." So content description is the property or the attribute that an Android developer needs to use to label these buttons properly. The other cool feature of screen readers is the ability to navigate and move through content by element type. So the ability to say, "I want to move by headings." It's a very common navigation pattern. It's very efficient. It's a great way to figure out, the content and structure of a page without having to trawl through absolutely every single thing. I'm really, really happy to report that Android has finally caught up to this idea and has added support for recognizing and navigating by headings. Hello! It's only taken, I do not know how long. But again, if you've got a piece of text in Android speak, it's a text view, and you apply the property accessibility heading equals true, then that piece of text will be recognized in code as a heading. It will be acknowledged in the screen reader for navigation by headings, and everything will, well, I won't say everything will work, but we'll be on the right track. Moving away from the screen readers, I think it's really important to point out to developers that there are very many ways that people interface and interact with their devices. And one of the ones that has come a very long way in the last even 12 months is hands-free interaction. On the Android platform, that is represented by Google's product called Voice Access. It's another app that's downloadable via the Play Store. It is free. And it goes well beyond the voice assistants that you may know in terms of Siri, Alexa, OK Google. Those assistants will help you with very basic tasks and very formulaic requests, whereas voice access is an entirely alternate interaction pattern for your entire device and your entire platform. So quick video from Google introducing voice access, and a couple of people who definitely benefit from its features.
Let's go, guys. My name's Stephanie, and I just finished my master's in advertising. I'm a C4, C5 split level quadriplegic. I have no feeling from my collarbone down, so it is absolutely vital that I'm able to use my voice. Okay, Google. Start voice access.
My name's Jeff, and I have a neurological condition called essential tremor. It is incredibly difficult to use my hands and fingers. It is very easy for me to use my voice. Okay, Google, start voice access.
After using this product for probably about 10 seconds, I think I'm falling in love with it. Open camera. You use your voice, and you're able to access the world. Shutter, Share, Hangouts, Astrid Weber, Send.
I cannot tell you how excited I am about this product. Open Calendar, new when you don't have the ability to use your fingers and hands. Family movie night. It's really all about voice.
So we saw we heard Jeff and Stephanie both using their voices to execute commands on their Android devices. They were executing commands by name. They were calling things like open camera, shutter, share, and using all those keywords, typically off the labels that they could see on the screen. If the voice labels don't work directly, or you've got something like our big red plus button, which doesn't actually have a word on it, Voice Access presents on the screen visually this set of dynamic number labels which are applied to every single interactive element on the screen. So if you don't have a text-based label visible to you to see and say, you can use the number instead as shorthand. So for the screenshot of the Australia Post app I have on the screen right now, I could say tap 1 and that would log me out. Tap 4 to take me to the delivery preferences, tap 5 to add a delivery address. So, with some of those labels actually being quite long, saying the number is quite efficient. And, those numbers would refresh every time the screen is refreshed with new content and new interactive elements. I think from a developer perspective, it's really interesting to open your own app and run Voice Access and make sure that those number labels are present on everything that you expect to be able to interact with. If there's no number present, that means that Voice Access isn't treating your custom component as something that you can use. It's just something that you can read. Similarly, if you've got a custom component which is made up of several objects and Voice Access is presenting that as just an absolute mess of little number labels everywhere, you may want to have a look at, how you're combining all of those objects into one sort of larger group. So I'm really excited about Voice Access. I reckon it's really, really awesome. A couple of more generic recommendations for the mobile platforms before I go. Stephanie, as a wheelchair user and someone who has their device mounted on a stand, is definitely going to benefit from your app having the flexibility to be displayed in both portrait and landscape orientation, respecting the device no matter which way it's presented. We don't know, the ability of Stephanie to be able to reach out and turn her device around. So if your app is locked, she's got her standing up in portrait orientation. If your app is locked to landscape orientation, you're forcing her to read sideways or to tilt her head and have an uncomfortable experience using your app. So if you can design and build your apps so that they detect and flex to whatever orientations the device is in, that is absolutely fantastic. Also required now by WCAG 2.1. So that's just sort of the real life. And for Jeff, motion interaction obviously is going to be a massive challenge for Jeff because, with his essential tremor, he is at high risk of triggering events that he did not intend to, whether it's his own motion being detected by a camera on his device or while he's holding the device itself and triggering the device sensors. So designing your functions, making motion interaction optional and configurable so that people can decide whether or not they want to do shake to undo or shake to play is a really good design pattern. So let's go to lunch. But before we do, here's the wrap up of what I've just covered. Please do go and update your Twitter settings, make them more accessible, describe your photos. Play with the Android accessibility settings. As an app developer, you should be checking when you change the settings in the accessibility part of your device. Does your app respect it or does it ignore it? If it ignores it, you've got some work to do. If it respects it, is everything still usable, or has something been crunched or changed for the worse? Please download the accessibility scanner, TalkBack and Voice Access and have a go. I think particularly the scanner and Voice Access have quite a low barrier to entry. Obviously TalkBack being a screen reader with the change in gestures, maybe have the instructions for how to turn TalkBack off available on another device, because some people do get flustered the first time they start playing with screen readers. Support portrait and landscape in your app designs. Add motion alternatives so that people can opt in when they want and out if they need to. And that's the end from me. I think we'll be taking questions outside at lunch because I think everyone's really, really hungry.
I was just going to ask that, Alison. Put your hands together for Alison, please.